All right, welcome back, everyone. We're diving into something pretty personal today, loneliness.
Oh, yeah, it's a tough one.
And to really get into it, we've been looking at overcoming loneliness, finding connection and self-worth.
Really insightful stuff.
So we're going to break down some of the ideas, look at ways to kind of cope with it, find some strategies.
Yeah, and maybe see loneliness a little differently by the end of this.
Exactly, maybe even reframe it entirely.
Because the first thing that hit me about this source is that it just straight up says, look, millions of people experience loneliness.
It's not just you.
Yeah, and it doesn't matter who you are, really. Your age, what you're like as a person.
If you're in a relationship or not,
Yeah,
it doesn't discriminate.
exactly. And that kind of takes the pressure off a bit, doesn't it?
It does. Because sometimes you feel like you're the only one.
And this source, it even mentions how even those people who seem like they've got it all together,
The perfect life, tons of friends.
yeah, they can still be struggling with feeling lonely. It's not about how many people you're surrounded by.
So it's deeper than that. It's something else.
Way deeper. So then the question becomes okay, if it's this common,
How do we actually deal with it?
right? And one thing this source really emphasizes is that loneliness, it's not a permanent state.
Thank goodness.
It is, though, something that can feel incredibly overwhelming when you're in it.
It's like being stuck in a dark room, almost.
I think a better analogy might be the weather.
Okay, I like that.
Think about it. You get sunny days, you get storms, but neither lasts forever.
It changes, it passes.
Right. So instead of going, oh, I'm lonely, this is my life now.
It's more like, I'm feeling lonely right now, but this is just a phase.
Exactly. This too shall pass. And, I even remember back in college,
Yeah.
went through a really rough breakup, felt super lonely, all this free time I didn't know what to do with.
Happens to the best of us.
But instead of just, moping around, I decided to start hiking. Just to get out, do something.
Get some fresh air.
And it ended up being this amazing way to, reconnect with myself.
I love that.
And I discovered this whole passion for being outdoors, which I still have to this day.
That's a great example because it's like when you're feeling lonely,
Yeah.
it's a chance to clear out the clutter in your life.
Oh, I see. Make space for the things that really matter.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And the source, it talks about that too, about doing things you love, even if they seem small.
Oh, yeah. Those little things can be so powerful. Reading a good book, listening to your favorite music.
Trying out a new recipe, anything.
It reminds you who you are outside of your relationships.
Because it's easy to lose sight of that when you're feeling disconnected.
Totally. But it's all about nurturing your own interests, your own identity.
Right. Have I got to say, one of the hardest things about being lonely is finding the energy to actually reach out to people.
It's true. It feels like a huge effort sometimes.
It's like climbing a mountain.
But even small steps make a difference, and this source really emphasizes that. Just a text to a friend.
We're joining some kind of online group, right?
Exactly. Anything with shared interests, or even just smiling at someone you pass on the street.
Small interactions.
Yeah, it starts to rebuild those connection muscles.
Like going to the emotional gym. I love that.
It's about pushing past that voice in your head that says, I can't, or I shouldn't.
Because sometimes that voice is so loud.
It is.
Yeah.
We got to challenge those thoughts. And speaking of challenging thoughts,
Ooh, this is a good one.
the source talks about changing how we think about loneliness entirely.
Reframing it.
Instead of seeing it as this personal failure,
Right, there's something wrong with us.
we can start to view it as a signal, almost like,
A warning light.
yeah, kinda,
Yeah.
like how hunger pangs tell you to eat, or a smoke alarm tells you there's danger.
So loneliness is telling us we need connection.
Exactly. It's not saying you're flawed or unlovable, it's just information.
And we get to decide how we respond to that information.
And that leads to what I think is the most empowering message in this whole source.
Let's hear it.
You are enough, just as you are.
Oh, I love that.
Even when you're not surrounded by people, you are whole. You are complete.
It's easy to forget that in today's world. Everyone's so connected all the time.
Right. But solitude, being alone, it can be incredibly powerful for creativity.
Think of all the amazing artists and writers who found inspiration in solitude.
It's like a wellspring. So to kind of bring this all together,
Loneliness, it's a universal human
it's
experience.
something we all go through at some
It
point.
doesn't define us. It's temporary.
Yeah.
And if we shift how we see it.
We can actually use it as a tool for self-discovery, for connection, for growth.
So as we wrap this up, I think a really important question to leave everyone with is,
How would your life change if you started viewing loneliness as a starting point, not a finish line?
something to think about.
Definitely something to ponder. Thanks for joining us.
And see you next time for another deep dive.